Antonio Davis. You played for the Pacers.
Technical. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm your host, Rodney Woods, CEO of PN Community, Playbook Investors Network, and today, PN Global News. Welcome, everyone. AD, welcome, my brother, my host, the illustrious, smooth 6'10", smoothest guy I know, Antonio Davis.
What's going on, Rod? How you doing, my brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm blessed. We're here at the end of the day, man, trying to kick out this knowledge, man, about access to capital for entrepreneurs around the world, you know? So
Yeah,
we're here trying to do our thing. Hey, we got a illustrious group here who's been in the game for a long time and back in the game again. So with no further ado, we're going to get ready to introduce our guests because we only got 1 hour now, AD. So, we got to keep this thing right. Because, when people, they get a little antsy, you go too long, right?
There's nothing wrong with that, man. We got it today. We got it.
So we got our legendary funding group in the house today. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Okay.
And I'll start off, Rod, introducing our expound guest today. Introducing Todd Douglas, with over 25 years of experience in the financial markets. Todd Douglas brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the world of merchant cash advances. Legendary Funding Group is committed to providing fast, flexible funding solutions designed to help businesses grow and thrive. We all know how important that is. Whether you need quick access to working capital or want to seize a new business opportunity, Todd's extensive experience ensures a smooth, transparent funding process tailored to your unique needs. Trust in a proven leader in the Legendary Funding Group to help your business reach a new heights today. Todd, welcome, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Yes.
Also introducing Tony Cottrell. Tony Cottrell in finance, marketing, and business development, executive of over 25 years of diverse experience. As a senior funding manager at Legendary Funding Group, Tony specializes in delivering tailored funding solutions that empower businesses from small enterprises to large corporations as a direct funder. LFG provides rapid funding option for merchants and ISOs. Tony also manages the deal flow of referrals and leads for their ISO network, ensuring clients are efficiently approved and funded with optional solutions for the working capital needs. Tony Cottrell, Senior Funding Manager at Legendary Funding Group. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you for having me, Rodney.
Man, I gotta give shouts out. Hold on, man. We ain't gonna make this thing real like like hey, scripted, right? No, we do real talk here at PN Global News, right? We gotta give our shouts out to all of our partners, especially T-Mac, Tracy McGrady, former NBA player, who made all this happen when I had this vision about building something that we can help small business, minority, woman-owned, government, LGBTQ businesses, try to help them understand how to gain access to the capital, as well as helping the athlete entertainers understand how to do business and transition to this business space. So, I thank Tracy and all of our other partners for so much support there. And Will Harbor, man, I'm one of the most loyal dudes you're going to ever meet in your life. He'll keep you up all night, but one of the most loyal dudes. That's how I met Todd and Tony years ago. And they were already doing great things back then. And now they're still here doing it, trying to help businesses scale their business to the next level. And thanks, AD, we always thank our team, right?
Yes. No, I appreciate that too. And we got new teammates coming and going. And we just, our goal is, like Rod said, is just to get this information out. Let these small businesses have an opportunity to grow. We know how difficult it is to get access to this funding. So we're really excited about the wealth of knowledge that you guys are going to bring today.
Yep. So, man, we got some things we need to talk about, man, and want y'all to sit back, and think about all the questions that you might want to ask Legendary Funding Group, because we're gonna go through some Q&A things, and they're gonna expound on some things to make you understand, what this funding is all about. So, let's start. Can you give us like a little overview of funding landscape for you guys right now, Todd? So, can you give us like a little overview of that?
Sure. So Legendary Funding Group was, we put this together several years ago, and we have the ability to, provide working capital to businesses that are, anywhere from 6 months to a year into their business and need some capital to grow for inventory or growth opportunity, or they need to bridge themselves to a larger purchase order, and just to get them relatively simple process to get them access to, a decent amount of capital that will allow them to move their business forward, whether it's payroll issues, what they have, or they have things that they need to cover. We want to be there as a funding partner to facilitate that and make it as easy as possible. I mean, in this landscape that we live in with the banks right now, it's very, very difficult to acquire, working capital. And, we've created a process that will allow them to do that relatively simply.
We know the banks are tough, man. It's tough everywhere. So thank you for expounding on that. Hey.
With that being said, and you guys have so much experience with small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and on, what are some of the common challenges that they're facing? We talked about this a little bit last week, but what are you guys seeing as some of those common challenges that they're facing in gaining access to capital?
Well, I mean, first of all, from the banking side of things, it's very difficult to go through the banking lending process or loan process. It requires a, exhaustive amount of documentation. And, if you look at them cross-eyed or you get a bad loan officer or something like that, it's a very, challenging, long-term, type of process that you have to go through. And, the process that we've created is, I can fund people in as little as 24 hours, providing, simple documentation, bank statements, application, and depending on the, the transaction itself or the type of business or industry it's in, we can fund people very, very quickly. And what's important to understand is that once that relationship is developed with us, and we have a working relationship with our merchants, gaining access to that additional capital gets simpler and simpler. The cost of the money gets less and less. And, I have clients of mine that call me all the time. Hey, I need 200,000 for a week, or I need 200,000 for 30 days, or I've got an invoice that I'm waiting on to be paid, and we're able to get them funded very quickly. I have an eye doctor as an example out of New York. He's got 13 locations. He called me at 9 o'clock on Thursday night, and I funded him at 8:30 a.m. the next morning. $350,000.
Wow.
And so once we have that working relationship with the merchants and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and communicating with us and doing the right things, then we can, make that process very, very simple. Furthermore, we are credit score driven, right? The world has turned into what's your credit score? What's your credit score? We're driven by what is your revenue month over month? Are you growing? Are you doing the right things with the capital?
Mm-hmm.
And can you keep your payments moving on time and growing your business in a way that will allow you to continue to access capital? I mean, I have, restaurant groups that started with an advanced, for $25,000 and, now they're up to taking, $500,000-$600,000, at a clip because they've been able to grow their locations, to grow their businesses. And I can tell you from a transparency perspective, our capital certainly isn't the cheapest, right? We aren't cheap capital, and it's not super easy and super cheap, but we can get it to you quickly, and we can work with you, on a one-on-one, very boutique type basis to facilitate that process, to get you the money that you need. We're not here to provide startup capital, and we're not here to put you in a situation that's going to make your business go backwards. We want our capital to be used to facilitate growth and create more opportunity for revenue for you. And one of the things that I have discussed with all the time is companies come and say, well, I'm going to go sell some equity in my business. And I ask them, well, how much do you think your business is going to be worth in 2 years? Oh, well, my business is going to be worth $10 million. My business is going to be worth $50 million, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And I say, well, if you sold 5% of your equity, what's that going to be worth in 2 years? As opposed to taking 100 or 200,000 from me, and it may cost you a little bit more now for that capital, but in the long term, you're saving yourself hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars if you believe in your business, you believe in your growth, and you believe in what you're creating with this capital. So there's a discussion that takes place many times in the MCA space. It's younger people that don't have a true understanding about how business works and haven't owned their own companies and understand the flow. And so they're more trained just to, hound you to take the money, and then you probably can't get through to them on the same phone number the next week.
Right.
We take a very different approach than that.
Yeah. And so, Todd, we're understanding that you guys look more heavily at the owner and the business.
We look at the primary thing we're looking at is the business, right? And the revenue that it's doing up from a top line perspective, then the owner. But, again, going back to the credit score thing, I'll fund people down to 500 credit scores. Sometimes I don't even look at credit scores. It's just not as important, because it's really important to understand that we're purchasing your future receivables today at a discount. So I may buy $50,000 of your receivables. I may buy $100,000 of your receivables for, $80,000 today. So I would give you $80,000, and over the course of 6, 9, 12, 15 months, you'd repay me with the money you have coming in over that period of time. So I'm not loaning you money per se, but I'm purchasing your future revenue at a discount today to get you the capital that you need.
Yeah. Makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Well, I mean, I think you went through the different types of capital or funding options, pretty much based on you can do it quickly. It's a higher interest rate and other. Is there anything else you want to expand on as far as the different types of funding that you guys do? Is there anything else?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So, I've been in the financial markets for the better part of 25 years. I was a mortgage banker for over 20 years. I owned a mortgage bank. So I've been in the real estate side of things as well. And I have a magnitude of funding partners that are in that space as well, along with, we love government contracts and people that are in that space, because we have the ability to factor their receivables, which is much cheaper money. We have the ability to factor purchase orders. And I have, syndication and funding partners that will allow us to do that. So we've tried to come up with a fully encompassing solution based on the type of business that you're running and what you have. A lot of a lot of people are pushed out from the government contracting side because they can get the contract because they're a minority-owned business or they're a woman-owned business, and they can get the contracts all day long, right, on the set-asides, but they can't get access to capital. Where we have lines of credit through our partners of the better part of $1 billion to be able to fund those type of contracts. So as long as the deals make sense and it's good paper, we can get them access to that money, on those set-asides.
Todd, real quick, I'm sorry. You mentioned factor, right?
Yeah.
And for our listening audience, can you explain what that means, what factoring means?
Factoring means basically you have an invoice that's due. So let's say you're on 30-day terms or 60-day net terms, and you've got money coming in. So we'll come in, we'll verify the purchase order, or we'll verify the invoice, and then we'll advance you money against that, based upon the credit worthiness of the payee of the invoice.
Right.
So if it's a government contract, it's very easy to factor that invoice. But a lot of government contracts are on 90-day net or 60-day net. So you're pushing money out to get your product out there, and then you're waiting on that money, and people get caught up in that time space where they need that liquidity and they need that capital to get to it. And so when you have a verifiable invoice from a credit-worthy payer, then it's very easy for us to then create a relationship with them and you guys to advance you the money up front, and then that capital or that payment comes to us, and then that just keeps on rolling through. We have a client out of California, just as an example. She's a woman-owned business, and she's got contracts anywhere from the Peace Corps to the Air Force to DLA to Department of Defense, and we've been able to ramp her up from she was doing about 10 million. We've ramped her up to almost 100 million over the last 18 months. And so because she has those set-asides and she has those government contracts and those relationships, and she went through the FBI clearance and all that stuff, she's able to garner those contracts. And because we can provide that working capital and that purchase order financing and that factoring, she's been able to grow her business,
Yeah. And that's, Todd, and thank you for that, because that's about maybe 70% of small businesses are in that situation, trying to scale his or her business to the next level, but don't have the liquidity,
Yes.
So, and I know this being on the corporate side of things, we talk about the government side, set aside, that's one thing, but on the public side of things, you still have companies that are paying vendors, net 90, 120.
Yes.
Right. And that's really, really tough for a small business to sustain his or her growth. Right. So what can Legendary Funding Group do for something like that? Because it's a 90, 120, net pay.
Right. So when you get into a situation like that, what we're looking for really is, as you're in a situation like that, you have multiple clients paying. So that's they're sort of somersaulting on each other. So as you have a new contract, that may be coming due and you're getting that money in. So if we were to advance money against that, as long as that cash flow is consistent, we can help them constantly fill that gap so that they can chase that 90-day terms and keep their coffers full for their payroll and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, there's a cost to that because we're taking significant risk on the fact that they're going to continue to get paid by their suppliers or by the people by their end users.
Right.
But we can keep that cash flow going. And one of the most important things to the situation is, as long as people are keeping up with their payments, they're doing an effective job of communicating with us, we understand their growth and what they're doing, we can continue to renew that position and that capital to ensure that they, can keep that money going. I mean, I get calls all day long. Hey, I've got an invoice. It's going to get paid next week. I need to make payroll today. I need $100,000 for, 45 days or 60 days. And so we'll put them in a position to have that liquidity, and again, from a transparency perspective, sometimes people say, well, I don't want to pay that much for that. And the answer really is, well, what's the cost of not taking the money? The cost is your employees aren't getting paid.
Yeah.
Right. Your internet's getting shut off.
Yeah.
And again, our goal is not to take businesses that are, overly challenged or burdened, but sort of play in a space where we can be, we're between the startup and the
growing
bank.
concern, correct.
We play that middle game with them because we want to
Yeah.
help elevate them to that next level,
Right.
facilitate that in that middle stage.
No, I know once you get the loan, then there's obviously the details and the best practices of that, right? Can you talk? I think Rod, we may have talked about it too, like co-mingling of funds, and how entrepreneurs can prevent that from happening. Tony, can you speak to that a little bit? Just like what does that mean and how that's not a good practice?
Yeah, certainly. So the commingling on a business account, and we look at that as we're fanning files constantly, where a business merchant has a B of A account, and we're going through and we're seeing business transaction, PlayStation, DoorDash.
Hold on, Tony. Oh, you got to go back over that one. Because we all know it happens, right? But you got to slow that down, Tony.
But what if we got PlayStation in our office?
Yeah,
we have some DoorDash. I'm just
right, and I get it, but setting up a complete chart of accounts where you're pulling off a draw to take care of your personal needs and that kind of thing, so that when you're preparing for funding and somebody's looking at your stuff, now we don't actually care. Todd looks past all of that kind of stuff, because that guy might be doing 300, 450,000 a month with that PlayStation on there,
Right.
whatever. He's overlooking that stuff. But to keep that clean for accounting, and if you ever get in trouble legally and they ask you for your corporate books, when you commingle your fund, you pierce your corporate veil, and that's a whole different podcast for us to get into going down. I don't want to get into the weeds, but
yeah.
So we really want to just try and keep those accounts clean and do business stuff in your business account. Keep your personal.
Got it.
Yeah. So Todd, Tony, I mean, do you guys even look at the company if they haven't filed their taxes and stuff like that?
So let me break that down for you to understanding. There's several different platforms that I'll fund off of. I have a variety of ways to fund things. And when you get into larger advances, 200, 300, 400, $1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, then we start looking a lot closer at tax returns, P&Ls, balance sheets,
Gotcha.
AR, AP. When you're talking about, up to a few $100,000, I don't necessarily need to see tax returns because, again, this is not being underwritten as a loan. It's really looking at the business as a revenue generator that has the capacity to sell future receivables at a discount to me that I'm buying now and collect back. So how much? I mean, obviously, a company that's losing, $1 million a year, is a more challenging advance on a large scale. But I'll give you an example. I have a company that I funded. They lost $7 million last year, but their cash flow is $1.2 million a month, and so we funded them $1.5 million, right? Because their cash flow can handle it, and they're a growing business with responsible owners who have shown a capacity to manage their cash flow appropriately, and in that loss through their capital raise and how their money is flowing, they're able to make those payments on the weekly basis to facilitate that purchase.
Okay.
Not to cross you, Todd, but Ethan Jones, and I was going to ask you to break this down, the difference between interest rates and a factor rate, because you talked about factoring earlier, but most people confuse those two. So T, could you break down the difference?
Sure. So interest rates are associated to a loan, right? We're not giving you a loan. Now you can, in your mind, because that's sort of how people are programmed when they have money given to them or they borrow it, it's considered a loan. We're not lending money, so there's no actual interest rate. What we go off is what's called a factor rate. So we take the amount that we're advancing you and we multiply that by the factor rate, which could be anywhere from 1.25% up to 1.50%, right? And so on $100,000, that repayment of those receivables could be anywhere from $125,000 up to $150,000 over a period of anywhere from 3 months to 15 months, depending on, the industry type, the time in business, there's a lot of different aspects that I look at to ensure that, our investment is protected and our purchase is protected. But we're also not putting, you into a situation that's going to, jam up your cash flow so that you can't, grow like you need to. So we're not an interest rate. Now, if you wanted to, you could take and if you did an analysis of what it's costing you, you can convert it into an interest rate.
Right.
But again, that doesn't have a whole lot of relevance when you're looking at, working capital to facilitate growth, because over the long term, if you're using this capital correctly, this money that you're paying on the cost side, it becomes a rounding error in the long run to the overall, spend on the money.
Right. So Todd, Tony, and I appreciate you guys, man. This is really good for the viewing audience and the listening public, because there's so many misnomers about capital, how you access capital, how do you get, MTA loans, the whole nine. So one of the questions that I have is like, what happens? And this is real. What happens if you don't pay your MTA loan?
What happens when you don't pay? So in an MCA advance.
Oh, you go whoop us, Tony? Oh, okay.
In an MCA advance, you're signing, the business is signing for the advance, and then you're also signing what's called a personal guarantee of performance. Now that differs from an actual personal guarantee. However, a personal guarantee of performance says basically that you're going to follow all the guidelines associated to how you're using the money, which is not for personal use. You're not committing fraud of any type. You're not diverting your receivables to another account and not telling us. You're not disclosing certain things as it relates to the situation. And so if you've done all of that right and your business just fails, well, then we really don't have a ton to stand on. However, if any of these things transpire and you've signed a personal guarantee of performance, then you're on the hook on a personal level, like you would be on anything else, for us to go after, what we're owed essentially. And so while you're not personally guaranteeing it per se, the personal guarantee of performance protects us because we're really giving you unsecured capital, right? We're not putting any liens on any of your real estate. We're not putting, anything other than, a UCC filing against your business, which doesn't actually transpire unless there is some type of default. There are some companies that'll immediately file that UCC when they do the advance. We typically do not do that unless we're in a very high risk position, with the merchant. And again, I can tell you that my perspective of it is I'm not adverse to risk in working with merchants that need facilitation on capital. We're certainly not stupid about the money that we advance to companies, but the way that I've learned this business and how to do it is to really work with the merchants to provide them with a situation where they're not going to get in trouble. And part of an MCA contract allows you to manage your cash flow. And what I mean manage is if you're doing $100,000 a month, and you do 100,000 and 100,000, 100,000, and then you have a dip in your revenue, and the next month you only do $60,000, you can ask for a reconciliation on your contract, which means we're going to come in and look at your bank statement and say, okay, their revenue has dropped, and part of our contract is we're only taking 20%, as an example, of your remittance or of your total revenue for the month.
Mm-hmm.
So I would then reduce your payment over a certain period of time to allow you to recover back to your revenue and get yourself back paying, right? So just to give you guys a little bit of history of the MCA world, the MCA space was really born after the financial crisis in 2008. And what was happening essentially is the merchant processors, the credit card processing companies, what they were doing is they were advancing capital to their restaurants, their businesses that they were processing the credit cards. And so they could see, hey, this guy is doing $50,000 a month. We're going to take, 10% of their revenue a month, or 0.5% or whatever it is on a daily basis. So if they processed $1,000 today, we're going to take $100 out of that or $50 out of that, and then we're going to give them the rest of the money. And so it allowed those merchant processing companies to control what was going on, because before the dollars ever touched the merchant's hands, they had the capability to take the money out, because they hold it first and then they're sending it to the merchant. And Stripe does it, and a lot of these companies out there do it. They're not the cheapest and they're not the easiest to work with. And so out of that, 2008, 2009, 2010, people started getting more heavily into being able to advance other types of companies, because there's a lot of companies that didn't take credit cards. There's a lot of companies that didn't use merchant processing. And so this has really expanded into the capability to fund a lot more businesses on much higher dollar levels. I mean, I gave up, I advanced a company that's going public right now. We gave them $7.5 million, right? They're going public, and that got them through, and they needed this and that. And so that wouldn't have been possible back when this business first started. They would have had to go to the bank, and if they didn't qualify and they had a judgment against them because they were being sued by Sony Records, and they had to settle that. A lot of that stuff doesn't mean so much to us. Again, we just want to make sure that they have the ongoing revenue to support those daily or weekly payments back to us as we're collecting what we advance to them.
Okay.
Todd, you mentioned a couple of times that, the money is not cheap. Can you give us like the difference between, let's say, I don't know, a typical bank fee and maybe what you charge? And I know that there's different scenarios, so everybody's not charged the same. But when you say expensive, can you kind of explain?
So you're looking at factor rates anywhere from 1.25 up to 1.50, right?
Okay.
And it's hard to give you a specific answer to that, because it really depends on the deal. But what's important to understand is we're looking at cost of capital, right? And so if I advanced you $100,000 and said, over the next 9 months, you have to pay me back $150,000, I'm going to say to you, if you pay me back in 2 months, you're only going to pay me $120,000. If you pay me back in 3 months, you're going to pay me $100,000. So in this scenario, we give you an option to, as a prepayment discount, that if you're waiting on a large invoice, or you've got a big investment coming in or something, and you need that bridge to get through, if you want to make the capital cheaper to you, then you can do that by paying us off early, right? Because then that allows us to take that amount of money and relaunch that to somebody else to turn additional revenue for us. And so we want to make it advantageous to our merchants if they pay the money off early. A lot of people, especially when they're first getting into the MCA space, if you are taking it, they try and compare it to a bank loan, right? Or they try and compare it to well, if I went to the bank, well, you have a 530 credit score. you had a bankruptcy 3 years ago. Your company is only 18 months old. So yes, there's a car parked in the garage, but you don't have the key to turn it on.
Right.
So I can give you the key to turn that car on and facilitate you. And let's get you into a position of strength. And let's get you into a position. So yes, is the money more expensive than a bank? But it's like comparing apples to oranges, right?
Yeah.
I always look at it like this. There's 3 things: cheap, fast, and good. Pick 2 of them. You want it cheap and fast, it's not going to be good. You want it cheap and good, it's not going to be fast, right? Pick 2 of those 3, and that's where you're going to go. And so once we start working with the merchants, they understand what's going on, we can continue to give them the capital that they need to grow. And they have to put that, well, it's costing me an extra. If I went to the bank, it would only cost me $15,000, but it's costing me $22,000 with you. Well, you can't compare those two because you can't go to the bank.
Yeah.
So you're not getting into the VIP section yet.
Right. So Todd or Tony, does, like, when it comes to the merchant advance, does it hurt your credit, in any kind of way?
So we don't report to any credit bureaus because, again, it's
Okay.
against the business. To talk a little bit about credit, depending on the deal and the platform that we're putting it on, and I want to say the quality of the advance you're taking, that's really going to be dependent on whether we do what's called a soft pull, which is not an inquiry technically, or a hard pull, right? So it really depends on the quality of advance you're getting and how deep the platform that I put you on is going to dig. One of my platforms that I fund off of, I don't even pull a credit report. I don't care. I don't care what your personal credit looks like, because I'm looking at your business and I'm buying your future receivables. So I want to make sure that people understand that, we're not in the bad credit lending business. We're in the growing business advanced space, right? And so sometimes we will look at credit. People want a 12-month term, and they want a decent amount of money. Yeah, I'm going to look at your credit, because now I'm going to be we're going to be together for 12 months, and I want to make sure that you're a responsible person. If I'm going to be in your transaction for 90 or 100 days, then your overall personal credit's not as important to me. It's your business and the revenue that you have coming in and where it's coming from.
Right.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
No, it does. This is really, really, really good. I know we're going to dig deep. AD, we're going to always dig deeper when we get a little bit more time with Todd and Tony. That's pretty cool. TNT. Oh, that's all right. I like that. we always in the branding over here, right?
The legendary TNT.
Legendary, right? Funding group, right?
That's right.
But yeah, we're going to dig. I mean, it's so warranted, Todd and Tony, and we thank you guys for being here tonight for sure, and taking time out of your schedule to actually expound on how this business works and how the MCA world works and everything else. Because a lot of people don't really understand. A lot of people don't even know what an MCA loan really is. They don't even know, right?
Not alone.
Well, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll back up. I'm sorry. Not alone. Sorry, Tony. I'm sorry.
Thank you. But just listen, I just want to give some advice to people that are on this call that have sort of mulled around the MCA space, or have these joker guys calling them all the time and telling them this. There's no such thing of, if you take this advance today, I'll get you a line of credit if you pay this off, right? There's a lot of brokers and guys out there that are trained to make these false promises to you about, if you do just take this deal and as long as you pay it, I'll get you $1 million line of credit at 3%. I can't tell you how many merchants come to me and tell me stories of, well, I got told this and it never happened. And they even sent me a letter that said that they're going to do this. You can't believe any of that. And it's really important. And Tony and I are trying to get out into the market as hard as we can, because we want to get to people and tell them the truth, right?
Okay.
People can handle the truth and make decisions about their business. These are business owners that are working hard to grow their business, take care of their family, take care of their employees. And we want to create a transparent, situation where they're getting into this. This is the cost of the capital. This is what it means. And guess what? If you need something, my phone's on until I fall asleep at 11 o'clock at night. You'll be able to reach me.
That's right.
I mean, that's why, hey, listen, Todd, Tony, and AD knows this, and our team knows this. I mean, that's why we advocate, one, joining the PN community, just to get a sense of education on how all this works, because I think we think a lot of times we really know everything that's going on, with our business. We should know that, but we really don't know the financial cycles, and we don't know, the world in which you and Tony, thrive in and try to help companies get to the next level. We don't know the private equity world that well, VC world, and the banks, as you say, if you don't have your stuff together, you can't get in the bank neither. Even if you don't have recurring revenues. If you don't have recurring revenues, you're not even getting that loan anyway. I don't care what you got. Well, you made $20,000 this month, but last month you only brought in $5,000. You're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get what you want, even if you got a 780 score, right? And you guys see this all the time, right?
Yes.
But you guys are like the line of defense to really help a business get off the ground and get what he or she needs to keep that business going. And that's what you are, right?
Yes.
That's it. That's it. And being a direct funder, we're able to, to do the different things that Todd was speaking about. Why we don't have to look at all of these things, and because it's in house, and we're able to fund everything from 10,000 to 5 million in house on one particular platform, and then he moves it to different things depending on the client. That's we're able to empower so many different businesses that way by being able to shore up, empower them, especially like the government contractors with the factoring. Once once a business or a merchant understands that there's a direct funder sitting behind me that can give me the capital I need to go close this contract or deal, they're so empowered, and we see it constantly. They just run out there and like Todd was explaining, she's just getting contract after contract because she knows she's got the financial backing to do so.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead, A. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, Todd, I think you mentioned something, and it kind of happened to me. You get these brokers, right? Can you explain to our viewers what is a broker?
So a broker is essentially a guy sitting in a cube somewhere, probably in New York or Florida, who is being provided a list of merchants who have either taken advances before or they're buying it from somewhere, and they're just outbound calling. They're calling 100, 200, 300 people a day and trying to collect bank statements and applications and then send them to me as a funder to see if I'll provide working capital for their clients.
How can you, like, what questions would I ask to know that they're a broker and they're not a direct lender? Do I just ask them, are they a broker?
No, they're going to tell you, no, I'm a funder. They're going to tell you I'm a funder. They're going to lie to you.
They are.
There is a handful of us out here that are actual funders that can write it on the deal. It's very easy to find out too, because typically, not always, because I do what's called syndicating with some of my funding partners, like I started off the conversation, because I have funds on different platforms based on the length of time I'm going to fund the deal for and where the capital is coming from. But if a guy's company is called Diverse Funding Group, right, and you get a contract from, Legendary Funding Group, you know the guy brokered the deal, right?
Yeah.
And so 99.9% of the people that are making those calls, they are brokers, because I'm not calling merchants myself, right? I'm accepting applications from brokers and ISOs and financial people that want funding, right? So 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a brokers. And listen, there's nothing wrong with brokers per se, right? They're out there trying to help the merchants find the funding. The challenge is that they don't typically know what they're talking about. They're 20-something-year-old kids that are just phone jockeying all day, trying to get application and bank statements, then call you back and say, take the money, 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 because they don't care. It's my money that's at risk, not theirs. They're looking for a commission, period.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's why we're here. That's the importance of community.
I don't mean to interrupt you, A, but the other thing is, once you get a merchant cash advance, what'll start happening, and everyone be prepared for this because it's inevitable, your phone will start blowing up. Hey, I know that you just took funding. I can get you more funding. Yeah. And what happens there is, if I've advanced you $100,000 and a broker goes in there and finds you another deal for another $50,000, right? Now you've got two positions or two advances with more of your revenue, monthly revenue, going out the door. So that broker is putting me and my capital at risk because more of your revenue is being diverted somewhere else. And typically, if they come in behind me, they're going to do it for a shorter term and a higher per day or per week dollar figure. So they're jeopardizing my position with you. And so, again, we do our very best to communicate with merchants that, hey, if you get jammed up or you need a little bit of additional capital, call us directly, right? Yeah. And we'll figure it out, or at least we know what you're doing, so we can help you get with the right people to ensure that things go smoothly. Let me just give you guys another example. If I give you an advance for $100,000 and then another advance comes in for $50,000 behind me, and you miss payments, or that guy's a jerk, or you miss a payment with him or whatever, and he files a lien against you, or he files his UCC, or he comes after you, and he freezes your account because you didn't pay him. You didn't pay him. Now my money's been jeopardized without me even knowing this, right? And so you're jeopardizing me. And so you have to be very, very careful. And again, when we do our merchant interviews and we talk to our merchants, we want to have that relationship. Say, don't be afraid to call me if there's something that you need, because let us help you before some other guy jumps in and screws up the whole situation for you and for us.
And that's why we're trying to educate, everybody on the access to capital, because it's so important to understand, Todd, what you've expounded on, Tony, what you've expounded on, and, put this knowledge out here where people can understand this is why you want to talk to a group like Legendary Funding Group. Also, we want you to be more educated. And we try to do as much due diligence and education in the PN community. That's why we're always telling people, hey, join, network, talk to Legendary Funding Group, utilize their services and utilize the capital that they have to help you scale and grow, your business and get it to the next level. We're not saying, you need to stay on it for like 2 or 3 years. Hey, you guys want to get your money back too. You're in the game to monetize and make money, but we're also trying to, get it right on the front end so that we can, stop a lot of companies from losing their businesses, closing their doors, only because they took the bad money and then they didn't do the right thing themselves by paying it back. So, and that's a tough challenge because, a lot of us have gotten money and we're just not getting the money that we need to even pay it back. So, you got to really, really, really be careful about that.
Yes, sir.
Let me see. We got also, I think for anybody, our back office team, Rodell and a few others on the team are saying any questions that, the listening audience or the viewing audience have, please post your questions. Other few people have already done. And Tony, I think you answered a question from Mr. Jones. But, we want you to be very interactive, ask questions. If it's something you don't know, don't worry. Don't be embarrassed by it. That's the beauty about PN community, because you don't have to be embarrassed by anything. You just sit there on your iPhone, your Android, your iOS pad, and just ask questions. Network. Talk to the person next to you. Talk to the person in your city or your state, because we want to bring, obviously, we have a relationship with Legendary, Funding Group, but we want to bring, other equity partners, from private equity, VC, family offices into the fold so that they can actually help you too. But we know that this is probably your first line, especially small businesses, is working with someone like, Legendary Funding Group, because it's really a challenge. And I say it every day. I've seen it in pretty much out of 50 states, at least 40 states on the minority business side of things, and the woman-owned business, the government side, that it's just hard to access capital. It's hard. And I know, Todd, you're passionate about it. I know Tony's passionate about it. I know, working with Will over the years, we all really passionate about it. And that's why we're here tonight with, AD, the team, and all the other members that are part of what we're trying to get accomplished, because somebody's got to educate people on how this really works. And that's what you guys are doing, Todd and Tony.
Sure.
So let's be very clear. Let's go back through it, because I think it never hurts to continue to establish the difference who an MCA advance is for and who it's not for. So I heard you say a few times, Todd, this is not for a startup, right?
Correct.
This is not for that company that needs some money to, get a product made, or to, to get their business off the ground or something like that. This is not for you at all. No,
right?
Because you're not providing a loan for somebody to start their business, right?
Correct.
What this is for, it is for a company who, like you said, sometimes there's cash flow challenges. There's certain situations where you may need some quick funding for a short period of time. And short period could be anywhere from 30 days to, 18 months, right?
Yes.
So if you need money a little longer than that, then this really maybe not the situation for you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I always just like to make sure I establish a very fine line between who this is for and who it's not for, because so many times we say access to capital and we don't look at our situation to see exactly kind of what's out there for us, and I don't want our listeners to, get a merchant cash advance if they're talking about, oh, I'm starting my business and I need to do A, B, and C. So I want to throw that out there.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And I guess some of the other, and I'll say this, I took a merchant cash advance, and it was not a pretty thing. I was glad when you guys came on, and that's why I asked about a broker. I asked about all this different stuff. I remember I got a small one. It was I had an invoice that was promised that was going to come in. I had payroll that I had to meet that Friday. I started panicking on Wednesday. I went in and I got the money, and then the money came that Monday, and I paid it the next week, right? And I couldn't sleep. Like, I just didn't like it, right? Because I kept saying, to pay somebody back weekly, right, is tough, right? You got to make sure that you have the cash flow. You got to make sure that you're on point with what you need, with not getting more money than you actually need, or not getting enough, right? We talked about this a little bit last week, like, hey, and I guess I'm going to ask more of a question. How do I determine, like just let's say, for instance, if I needed $50,000 to pay my payroll on a Friday, right? Do I just borrow that 50, or do I go ahead and get 60 or 75? Because there's always stuff that happens and I may need that extra money. And then let's say if I only needed that 50, can I give you that 25 back? Because I really didn't need it, but I just was afraid that I was going to need it.
So, we work, we sort of tailor make situations. If in your example, which maybe
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just curious.
No. I hear you. What I would do in that situation is I would do the advance for the 75,000. You call me on Wednesday and say, look, I want to pay it down to 50,000. I'd have you pay the 25,000, just write a new deal on that 50,
okay,
which would reduce your outflow on a daily or weekly basis, right? Okay. And so it's important to understand, this isn't a monthly loan or a monthly advance. Like,
right,
we're providing short-term capital, working capital for the needs that you have, and we're not gonna let you take more than what your business can truly afford to do if you're running your business correctly. I'm not going to put you in a situation where I want you to pay me $10,000 a week and you're only doing $16,000 a week in revenue. Like, right. I'm not going to jam you up, and that doesn't make any sense because your business is going to go out of business. So typically, depending on the position that we're coming in, we're looking to be at anywhere from a 8% remit all the way up to maybe 35% if I'm further down the chain. Because look, I come into situations all the time where they may have gotten a large advance of $500,000 and they need another 150, right? So I see who the advance is, who gave it to them, and then I may come in with that 150, but I'm still going to ensure that the total cost associated to that other advance and my advance aren't going to exceed a certain amount of their revenue, right? There's some high-risk funders that'll try and come in for 30 days and get in and out and, make their money. And I don't want to play that game. That's just not I'm not interested in that. There's ways to make money, appropriately and transparently and, truthful, trustworthy manner with the merchants that you're working with. And
Yeah.
because I've been on the merchant side of things and I've owned multiple companies and had hundreds of employees that have worked for me and, run office spaces and insurance and everything that goes in with running a high volume business, I have the capability to really dig into your business. I've been in the nightclub industry. I've been in the commercial demolition business. I've been in the mortgage business. I've been in probably 14 or 15 different industries. And so when I'm talking to a lot of the merchants that I'm communicating with, I already know how their business works. When a 25-year-old broker kid gets on the phone and goes, yeah, he doesn't have any insights into anything about your business, nor does he care. He just wants to get you in advance and get his commission and get out.
Yeah.
No, that's the beauty too, though, of you guys being able to work, in house and customize a lot of, packages for people who don't know, that something like this might really exist to help their business scale and grow. So that's a beauty thing, though, Todd and Tony.
I want to stress that too,
Yeah.
because I've been through this in the last year or so. It's almost like I wish I would have met you guys, right? Because it was painful to sit here needing money for my payroll, knowing that I had the money coming in, and literally having money and didn't want to deplete all my funds just to pay my payroll because I didn't know what was going to happen, right? And I didn't get this same feeling. It was just about, hey, you want the money, this is what it's going to cost, blah 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 blah. And I would have been screwed if it would have taken another week or two to get that money in, because it would have cost me so much.
I hear the story.
Yeah. So I see why we've partnered with you guys, because you guys do it the right way. And I appreciate that, because as a small business owner, you don't have a lot of options. That's right. And then, like you said, Todd, what is the cost of you not getting that money? Right now, you got some disgruntled employees. You got you got some stuff going on that you want no part of that, right?
Right.
Because it can really cripple your business.
Yeah.
So
try not paying an employee one time and see what happens.
One time. I don't care. You can give them a bonus. You can give them a car. You can give them a this and that, whatever they want, right? And you miss that pay one time and see what happens.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Oh man.
It is.
No, we all know too well what it's like. Unfortunately, I think most small businesses who have employees have been there, on some occasion, because you really are trying to, keep the payroll, keep the bills, paid, keep the lights on, keep the company going, because you'll do everything you can to keep it going. That's your livelihood. That's how you take care of your family.
That's right.
The whole nine. But more importantly, like I said, it goes back to a lot of education. What Todd, telling what you guys are doing today, to the public, here in the States, international, the whole nine, because it's the same story everywhere you go. I don't care if you're in Texas or you're in Florida, you're in DC, or you're in Switzerland. The same challenges exist all over. And it's just a challenge for small business to understand, one, or be educated, two, to be able to understand how to gain access to companies like yours, Legendary Funding Group. So we do thank you. And we also thank Will for the partnership, for making this happen. We also got a little thing for you here. So for everybody who's in the PN community and you want to go to the Legendary Funding Group, we will provide you a code so we can track and help you so you don't get off and have any missteps, because we don't want that to happen either. So right now, I think, and Sonia talked to you guys, but I think it's PN 001. I believe that's what the number. When Todd, Tony, you guys can work it out, because we want to make sure that we're tracking all the businesses that are trying to come into Legendary Funding Group, to make sure that they're getting what they need to get. We need to get, the testimonial stories out. This right here is big enough for a lot of people to understand. Wait a minute, I didn't even know this really existed. Right. So this is really, really good. And I know we got a lot more to do, around the U.S. and international, because we do have some international clients that are coming to the United States that's had some challenges, what we're talking about today. So, AD, I think we got, man, you guys did so well in answering questions. We didn't really have to go through every question we had for you. I'm like, man, y'all made it too easy.
But I told you he would answer questions within the questions.
I don't know, man. I think we got to take this show on the road, man. I think we might have a 50 state tours coming up soon, Todd and Tony.
Sounds great.
Sounds good.
But no, we got a couple sponsors that we need to, acknowledge. AD, as we said, we got a company coming in from Switzerland. It's called FootSnap. FootSnap. It's a device, a new technology company that's coming to the United States as well international. But there's not. FootSnap is coming. It's not physically here yet, but it would take an imprint of your feet, so you have a digital footprint of your feet for everything. If you got problems, diabetes, prosthetic, you lose a limb, the whole nine. For the athlete entertainers, prime example when Zion blew out his shoe with Nike, AD, if he had the proper shoe, he would never blown that shoe out. So that's going to be FootSnap, which is a partner of ours. And Todd, Tony, you guys will talk to them pretty soon. And another one of our partners is called, Burdock.
Burdock, yeah.
Burdock Naturals, right? It's a shaving for all you people who shave. Man, that's why it looks so good, because
I was waiting for him to say that's why.
Hey, y'all see this face? Burdock Naturals. No, man, great product. A young man out of Carolina who makes his product, and Burdock Naturals is a great product, man. It really does. I mean, I've had marks on my skin and it removed everything. So I live by Burdock Naturals. So we'll have that coming to you soon as well. But man, Tony, Todd, this has been outstanding, man. I mean, really educational, really motivating us to do a lot more to make sure that we help a lot of companies get to you guys. And, let's help these companies get to the next level. That's what we're all here for.
Yes, sir.
For sure. Yeah, I want to thank you guys too. And I'm sitting here holding back all the stuff that I went through because I want to say some bad words to those the other ones out there, right?
Out of curiosity, who was the funding group that you used? Do you remember?
I'll call you and talk to you about it. It was not a good situation. They were part of the 99% you were talking the bad ones you were talking.
Let me know. Let me see if I know them or not.
Man, they lied. They did some stuff, but I'm glad it came through where I was able to pay them back and get out of it. I was very relieved when that happened, and I was in one of those situations. And the crazy part is, I would go to some other situations, banks and stuff like that, and they look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, "Oh, well, you got money over here," and I said, "But it's my money. Like I need money for my business. If I keep funding my business, I'm going to be broke, and there's not, it's not what I need to do right now, and it's going to take me a minute to get that money out, right? If I got stocks and bonds and I got to do all this other stuff." It just wasn't what I needed at that time. So I want to thank you guys for being who you are, because there are some bad situations out there that would get our small businesses in places that they don't want to be and literally hurt and cripple their business. So I'm glad to hear you guys take this approach of, hey, I get to know the business. I get to, maybe even help them out. Or maybe tell them what they may need or what not need to do. And I'm not going to give somebody some money that's going to cripple their business. I'm not going to do that. So you brothers keep doing what you're doing, and we'll make sure we do our part to get people your way.
Yeah, so we'll thank you again, Tony, Todd. Thank you for everything, man. Thank you for the partnership. Absolutely. And join us every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and 6 p.m. Pacific Time, where AD is on the West Coast. And join PENN Global News, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday. Todd, Tony, enjoy, man. Take care, and let's take this thing to the next level. Bye-bye.
God bless. Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right.